Changing the world and saving the planet is fashionably found in our everyday lingo. All that buzz in the 21st century among millennials and Gen Z is about sustainability, conscious businesses, and even investing for impact.
And what do they mean by it? They mean, let's focus not just on financial returns, let's also do good. But where it gets into murky waters is when they imply that you can do well and you can do good. You can get both. And my view is that there must be a trade-off. Because if there is no trade-off, then we don't need to talk about it. Doing well is also doing good. So first thing we need to understand is we must accept that there is a trade-off. That is, if you invest in something that creates social impact, there may not be as high a financial return. So you have to give something up. There is no free lunch. And that requires more work and more thinking.
Going green looks great, but the question is how to find investment for it and the kind of investors for it. Whether they are ones who invest for a social benefit or for monetary payoffs.
There is philanthropic money that's willing to accept lower returns. There are commercial investors that are not willing to accept lower returns. But the twain shall not remain separate. We need to bring them together. Why? Because philanthropic money is limited. There isn't so much to go around. So what we need to do is we need to use a little philanthropic money, combine it with commercial funding, and together we would be able to generate more impact investments.
For creating this kind of joint financing between profit-motivated and impact-motivated investors, they need to feel motivated to do so.
But putting them together is not a simple thing because incentives of the two types of investors are different. On top of it, you have managers. The question is, how am I going to incentivize the managers? Oftentimes, we incentivize managers by giving them equity in the company, stock in the company. But for these impact investments, what type of managers should we have? Again, there are two schools of thought that impact investment should be run only by managers who believe in the impact. And I think that's a very narrow view. In fact, your best CEO may be a person who doesn't care about impact, but you give them the responsibility of making sure that impact happens. So when you design an incentive system, that would guarantee it. That would make sure that managers who are making decisions do it in a way that satisfies that impact imperative in addition to the financial return imperative.
So how is this done? Through designing contingent securities and incentive mechanisms that help run the firm, satisfy investors, and also create impact.
So we need to design securities. We need to design mechanisms by which securities are designed in such a way that cash flows are allocated to commercial investors and philanthropic investors bring in money in exchange for seeing some impact on the ground. So what do we need to be able to design such a system in which incentives are right and we create securities that are designed properly? One thing is we need metrics. We need metrics to be able to measure impact. And there's a lot of work on measuring what is called ESG, but no security returns seem to be based on that. So we need to formalize that and make it rigorous so that some of the securities returns are actually based on reaching some of those outcomes. And that requires careful thinking of trade-offs. That if you give a little bit more of this, what will I give up on the commercial side, and that requires some careful optimization.
This paper tells us the different conditions under which such securities are designed.
So in our paper, we construct a model that looks at these trade-offs to see what is the right kind of structure given the situation. So in some cases, we find it is optimal to have a non-profit company. In other cases, in addition to equity and debt, which is common, we can also design other securities like social impact bonds and social impact guarantees that measure impact, and the cash flows to some of these impact traders are based on those outcomes.
When the impact investor gives a subsidy to the profit-motivated investor, the resource is directed towards production for social benefits.
So the application of the paper is that we'll find that with the right design of securities, some impact investments that never got taken because they were not feasible will now become feasible with this extended incentive and design structure. This is likely to expand the scope of impact investing. We are more likely to see richer structures, but we are also likely to see many more projects being taken by private companies. Projects were typically relegated to government or NGOs only. And the other thing you have to realize is that philanthropic money is limited, so we have to use it judiciously. We can't just say, let all philanthropic money run the entire project. But that's expensive, because if I can do it with 1/10 of it, I'll be able to do 10 times as many projects. And that's what our paper tries to do. It tries to say, how do you optimize so that you use philanthropic money judiciously by combining it with the money that can come from regular commercial investors.
As reducing carbon emissions, sourcing better products, enhancing labor conditions, and creating ESG frameworks grow popular, there is a need to be realistic about the resources available and find ways to optimize returns. It becomes important to design securities that motivate profit-motivated investors to commit their resources to social good. This will happen when they are incentivized through pay-for-success contracts that provide larger payments when social goals are achieved. Similarly, the impact investors should hold social impact guarantees that compensate them with cash if impact goals are not met. These help direct resources and motivate investors towards the achievement of social goals.
The goal of this paper was to provide a conceptual understanding of how to design these securities and how to create metrics for measuring impact. As we progress, as people begin to understand these trade-offs, we are going to see much richer structures, much richer corporate structures, much richer set of securities beyond simply debt and equity. And we will also see people who are not into impact space also being part of these companies that are creating impact. We will see managers who don't care about impact still becoming CEOs of companies that are involved in impact.